Hello and welcome to this edition of The Breakaway here on Portable TV from our studio here in downtown Washington, D.C. My name is Ben Holden. Today we're talking KHL hockey. I'll also mix in some Olympic hockey with a coach who has won at every level he's coached at. He currently coaches in the KHL. He's a Calder Cup champ, a Stanley Cup champ, and most recently a Gagarin Cup champion, the champion in the KHL with the Hawks of Avangard. He is Bob Hartley. Currently in his fourth season coaching Avangard, and at the time of the KHL pause due to COVID and the Olympic break, his team was in fifth in the Eastern Conference playoff race, just 4 points back of the fourth and final home ice playoff spot in the East. In Bob's first season with Avangard, he guided his team to the Gagarin Cup finals, falling to longtime Russian hockey power CSKA in 4 games. During the 2021 season, Hartley's team got back to the KHL finals, defeating CSKA in 6 to win the Gagarin Cup. He's won the Cup in the KHL. He did so with Colorado in 2001 with the great Raymond Bourque on his team. Prior to that, he won the AHL's Calder Cup as the head coach of the Hershey Bears in 1997. Prior to that, he was at the helm of the Laval Titan in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, where he guided that team to the Memorial Cup playoffs, the pinnacle of junior hockey in Canada. He's a coach that wins, a coach that demands a lot from his players and gets the most out of his players, and certainly, as you hear, has the resume to prove it. Without further ado, let's head over to Russia, and join us now is Bob Hartley. Bob, thanks so much for this. Good to see you. You and I have talked a lot. First time we're meeting face-to-face. How are you today?
Yeah, it's great to see you, Ben. Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
How's the weather?
Very good. Like Moscow is, like not a very cold city. Like, there's little snow and, like the weather's all right. Like there's no problem.
That's good to hear. So just a quick backstory for those watching. As I mentioned, you and I meeting for the first time face-to-face. A longtime broadcast partner of mine, Fred Pletch, who I'm told you used to call Big Fred, connected us. Tell us the backstory of that.
Well, Freddie was our radio guy in Cornwall, like with the Aces in the American Hockey League, and wow, what a great man! What a great radio play-by-play. Like many times would work by himself, but at the same time, great guy. Like was really helpful, because in those days we're talking about 1993 to 1996. So, I remember I finished 1 year with no assistant coaches. We would get on the bus, one newspaper reporter, Freddie as the radio commentator, one equipment manager, one medical attendant, and myself, the coach. So it was pretty short staff. So Freddie would do some scouting duties with me. Post game, sometimes, I would ask him what he would see from the top. Like it's always a different view. So not only he was a great radio commentator, but we became great friends. What a nice man.
Yeah, I'm fortunate for my friendship with him. We've worked together for a lot of years, and I'll see him again in mid-February. We'll be back in Ann Arbor doing a game together at Michigan. So we're going to bounce around a lot with Bob here for those watching. We're going to talk about his team currently. He's got a lot of guys playing in the Olympics. His career, it's as decorated as any coach out there. Bob, I want to start, though, with your team. Once the break hit due to COVID and the impending Olympic break, you guys are in fifth in the East, 4 back of a home playoff spot. Kind of assess your season for me to this point. How do you feel about where your team is at this point?
I think that we're okay. Like we had many changes throughout the summer, and it took a little time to get going. Like I've said, we had many newcomers, especially at the forward position. So we had to retool our power play, our penalty killing unit. We lost quite a few guys on our penalty killing, but overall, we got bigger, and it took a little time. But right now we were playing pretty good hockey before the break, and as far as what we're told right now, we might go right in the playoffs as soon as the Olympians are back in Russia. So they're going to give us a few days to get ready, to get some good practices, and we'll start. So if that's the case, We're going to be playing against Ufa Salavat, who is a really good team. We have a good rivalry with them. We already met twice in the playoffs in the first 3 years. We beat them, they beat us. So, like, I like our chances. I think that we have a pretty solid team.
No doubt about it. I love watching a team play. They play hard, they play physical, they play smart, all the things that your teams have always done over the years. So practice-wise, so your guys have been business as usual for the players that you still have that aren't at the Olympics, correct?
Yeah, like we gave them 9 days, like from January 15th to the 24th, and then we got back working, and we tried to practice 3 days. We give them a day off, practice 3 days. We're gonna have 3 exhibition games against Moscow team like Spartak, Dynamo, and CSK just before that the Olympians come back, just to get back in the rhythm. Like it's so long just practicing, but I give lots of credit to our players. I love our focus. I love the intensity at practice. We try to make it fun at the same time, to keep them in a competitive mood. And I think with the Olympics starting in the next couple of days, boys will be able to watch some games and everything. So it's gonna bring back a little fire. But it's all our situation throughout the KHL is the same thing for all the teams. So we're all on even grounds.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those guys that are at the Olympics. And in my opinion, Bob, one of those players is your top line guy in Corbin Knight. I think he's an MVP candidate this year in the league. What a year he's had. You had him in Calgary for a short time, so you guys have a connection, some chemistry there. What's been the difference in him the last couple of years? Because I know he's really elevated his game in the last couple of years under your and your staff's guidance.
Yes, Corbin is number one. He's an ultimate professional. Like he's a treat to coach because he's absolutely zero maintenance. You don't have to worry about him showing up. You don't have to worry about him not working hard, not preparing adequately. Like whether it's gym, practices, video sessions, like he's a great student of the game. I think that not only he is a great player, but he has the potential to become a great coach. Like he sees the game well. He has great hockey sense. He's a good competitor, very disciplined on and off the ice. And you're right. Like I think he's probably one of the best imports in the KHL.
No doubt about it. So you and I talked via phone about a week ago before I interviewed your goaltender in Avangard, Simon Rubitz. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I got a man crush on this guy, Bob. He is an unbelievable dude. Just everything he does is it is first class. You told me all those things about him. What a story he is, though. Last year, you insert him into the run, winning the Cup. I'm going to dive into that a little deeper later in the interview. But just talk about Simon and what kind of guy he is. You see him every day. He's your guy in net there. What a great human, isn't he?
He's not a typical goalie, I can tell you this. Nothing bothers him. You can talk to him on game day, and I'm sure that he has, his own routine. But obviously, I've coached so many goalies that I've seen. I've seen every little tricks in the book, and you don't talk to them on game day. You don't bother them. Like you do special drills for them. Groovy is whatever it takes. I'm there. Like never loses his focus. Always great composure. Like and he is quite a man. Like great family man. Always happy. Always comes to the rink. Like nothing bothers him. And like challenges players in practice, makes it fun. So for me it was a big surprise because seeing him in Kunlun. Playing a few games against him, he was a great goalie, and suddenly management, like they tell me one day, hey, we're making a goalie change, we're bringing the Kunlun goalie, and I said okay, like we already had like 2 very good goalies, and he came in and his games were okay, they were not bad, and he was kind of we put him as our backup, and then in the playoffs, our number one had a good stretch in the first round. Started the second round against Magnitogorsk, like his play went down a little bit, and I sat with our goalie coach, Sergei Zyagin, and I said, hey, management made a trade to acquire Ruby. Hey, we might as well give him a chance. And wow, like it just started from this, and like consistent play, like never a bad goal. Like it was just unbelievable. Like always compete in the dressing room. Always shows great focus. And when a goalie, he shows his teammates that he doesn't get nervous, he doesn't get rattled. It's a sign of confidence. It's contagious. And at the end, like talking with Ilya Kovalchuk, Alex Siemlin, all our players, they said like, wow, like Gruby was a pillar for us, and they were absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate calming presence in net, and it reminds me of Red Berenson would always say to us all the years at Michigan, he'd say, the goalie just needs to stop the ones he should, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I know you're proud of all your guys that are in the Olympics for their respective countries, and I appreciate the insight on those two guys. Another guy I really love is Gritsuk. What a stud he is. I want to get a thought from you on what he's been like to coach and his development, Bob, especially this year. He seems to be at a really, really high level for your club.
Yeah, he's been with us for basically the last 3 years, and he started at 18 years old. And I remember his first training camp. You could see the skills, but then once you'd put him in games, you could tell there was a lack of experience. There was a little lack of physical strength, and it's normal. They're young players, and they go from junior right away to the KHL. Like the caliber is real good. Like there's some great hockey players. They're competing hard, and then but slowly but surely we saw a constant progression. And this year at training camp, hey, I remember talking with my partners inside, my assistant coaches. We were saying, Grits is turning into a man, and he had an okay start. And then we had a few injuries and this, and suddenly we put him with Corbin Knight, I don't know, like maybe early November. And, like, pow, he took off. Like, he has an unbelievable shot, for NHL fans. His play resembles a lot Yegor Chinakov in Columbus. Unbelievable wrist shot, NHL wrist shot. Like, he has everything, like, to be a great goal scorer. He has that quick release, that accuracy, hard shot, and he knows how to get open. He knows how to find that open ice. And defensively and overall, his understanding of the game, his hockey sense is very, very good. So I think that New Jersey has a great pick. And like I know that he has one more year here and next year with Avangard. And after this, like he'll have to make a tough decision.
Yeah. Great stuff. Bob Hartley joining us here, our guest here on this edition of The Breakaway. I told you before we talked offline, we're going to do a little trip down memory lane and go through some of your stops. Hawkesbury, Ontario. For those that don't know, it's I looked it up. It looks like it's about midway between Montreal and Ottawa. What do you still remember about growing up there, Bob? What stands out first and foremost for you about your hometown?
Well, it's an industrial small city, 10,000 population, like many factories. The paper factory was kind of the pride of our town. Like it was over 100 years old, and like many of family members worked there and everything, and playing baseball in the summer, playing hockey during winter, and like just like going to school. And so like it's right along the Ottawa River, and you're right, it's an hour of Ottawa, an hour of Montreal, and an hour of the New York border. So like it was pretty convenient to travel all around to go to the big cities. But Hawkesbury, it's a small, cozy city, and it's great. I just purchased a house back there 3 years ago, so like that's where I'm going to go back home. But I played all my minor hockey here. I played junior hockey also with the Hawks, and then at 27 years old, I was approached to be their goalie coach. And 8 games later, I was their head coach, and with absolutely zero coaching experience. And like Jacques Proche-Montagne, who was the president of the team. I will never thank him enough. I didn't want to coach. He lied to me, like in trying to force me in coaching. But it was 4 great years. We had 2 championships, and we sent lots of kids to NCAA scholarships. We sent lots of kids to Canadian Hockey League. So like we had a few of our players that went up to play in the NHL, and then went to Laval, and then like to pro hockey.
Good stuff. So I'm going to follow along with that about that stop. You win a championship. This is a fascinating part of your story, and I want you to tell us about it. You worked a full-time job as an assembly line worker. What was it? How long did you do that? You did both for how long? Both jobs?
I did it for a full year.
Okay.
Like I remember, like I would trade shifts with fellow employees because we were practicing at 5 o'clock at night. So I could never work the afternoon shift. So I would work one week of day shifts, and then what they call the graveyard shifts. I would do 2 weeks of 12 to 8, midnight to 8 in the morning. So many times we would play on the road, and thank God, like the Central Junior Hockey League, it's such like a tight league, like you don't travel very far, that Sunday night sometimes we would play on the road, and I'd have like my suit and tie on, and then change on the bus, and like I had my lunch pail on the bus, and the bus would drop me right at the factory, and I would go and work my shift, and 8 o'clock in the morning I'd get back home and sleep over. But like it was something at the start that, like I said, I started just as a volunteer goalie coach, and I would not travel, and like 8 games in, suddenly the entire plan changed. So like, but hey, it's something that I decided to do, and after 1 year I had to make that tough decision whether to jump in coaching full time, because I felt that if I was going to jump in coaching, I had to challenge myself to try to go as high as possible to, get to the NHL. And I know it was a pretty crazy goal or a crazy dream. And I even shared this in the last week of my work at the factory with my fellow workers. I said, boys, I just want to let you know I had lots of fun for you 4 great years, but I'll leave the plant and I'll go coaching full time, and one day I'll bring the Stanley Cup.
Oh, wow.
And some of my friends went to see my wife to say, like, did Bob start to drink, or is something wrong with him? Like, he's going to coach Junior A, and he's talking about bringing the Stanley Cup to the plant. But, like I remember that night of June 9th, 2001, and soon, maybe a few hours after we won in Colorado, my phone in my office was ringing, and it was my fellow ex-workers that were telling me, you promised to bring the cup. You better own up to your word. But I did.
That is awesome. That's obviously part of the story I was going to get to. But Bob, you're savvy. You've done this once or twice before. So I'm curious. One more thing on that part of that stage of your life and your career. So were you just planning on working in this factory? Was that what you thought your life was going to be?
Yeah, because like it was, like I'll have to be honest with you, it was pretty good money for a small city. It was quality jobs. I was working for PPG, like a windshield plant, and there was plenty of work, lots of overtime. I would work with my ex minor hockey teammates, school buddies, cousins, uncles, friends, neighbors. So it was really a little kind of family atmosphere. So like there was no problem. I learned a lot. I feel that my 8 years in the plant, like really prepared me well for coaching, because when you work in the plant with 500 to 600 workers, you work with all kinds of partners, and you have to adjust. And sometimes, like you always have to, like to show teamwork. To work in a plant, it's about being a team, and it's none different than a hockey team.
So from that job, you go on to Laval. You're there for a short time. Then you go to Cornwall. Jacques Martin hired you. You get an opportunity when he got called up by the then Quebec Nordiques. You get promoted, you win 2 division titles in a 3-year existence. They dissolve, you go to Hershey. I know from getting to know you, that's a place near and dear to your heart. You go to Hershey, and talk me through the 97 team. Who were some of the key guys you had on that team when you guys won the Calder Cup in 97?
Well, that was a special team because physically we were not a very big team. But boy, did we ever have guts. I had many small players, like our captain, Mike McHugh. He was all about hard work. What a team man, what a great man. Blair Atchingham went on to play with the Chicago Blackhawks and the St. Louis Blues. J.F. Labbé, our goalie, had probably a career year. He was the MVP of the playoffs, carried us. We had Wade Bielak. We had Eric Messier that I moved with him to Colorado a few years later and shared the Stanley Cup. Christian Matt, Eric Veilleux is an assistant coach right now in Syracuse. Paul Gerard, who's a great coach. I brought him to Colorado a few years later to be my video coach. I could go. Bob Woods, who's an NHL assistant coach. I had many great players, and it was lots of fun. Joseph Mara, we had a kind, and you know what? In that playoffs, we faced elimination 5 times.
Wow.
And we never refused to go down. It was pretty amazing. Of all my championships, and every championship is very special. If any coaches are watching us or listening to us, they know what I'm talking about. It needs special people. But that team, I remember we took a picture the next day with the Calder Cup, and black eyes and stitches and broken bones. They never wanted to quit, and that's the reason that we were champions.
Wow, great stuff, Bob. I love those kind of stories. So you have an incredible run, obviously, in Hershey. Mark Crawford gets the boot in Colorado, and then you're one step closer to that dream you told us about, taking that cup back to Hawkesbury, the factory. But the first couple years, your team had a tough time getting by Dallas. Man, I remember how good those teams were, being a Detroit fan and watching those teams. What was it that finally got those Colorado teams over the hump the year you guys won the Cup? What was it?
We did face Eddie Belfour. Those two semifinals, Game 7. Dallas had a great team. Darian Hatcher, Matt Vitchuk, Zubov, Modano, Nieuwendyk, Lehtinen. The Western Conference was not a picnic. Detroit, St. Louis, us. You basically could flip a coin. Any team could win. There was basically no weaknesses in those teams. But I remember Patrick Roy against Eddie Belfour, going for 7 games. What a matchup! And then on the 3rd year, we had a magical season. I think that we found a way to even get our game a big notch higher, starting right from day 1 of regular season. I think that we lost something only 16 games, if my memory is good. And then in the playoffs, there was some unbelievable battles, down 3-2 against New Jersey, and going in Game 6 and going down that tunnel with the bus, and there was a black Suburban right in front of us, and suddenly they opened the door, and we all see coming down the bus, we see it's the NHL security people with that big blue box, and we all know what's in that blue box. It's the Stanley Cup. And I remember Patrick West said they will not have to take that Stanley Cup out of that box tonight, because we were down 3-2. If we lose that game, well, for a 3rd year in a row, there's no Stanley Cup. And Patrick was outstanding in that first period. They dominated us in the first period, and we scored a late goal. Adam Foote scored a late goal on Brother to make it 1-0, and it seemed that it turned the game around. And 2nd and 3rd period, we played so hard, we played so well. If my memory is good again, I think that we beat them 4-0, and then we went to Colorado, Game 7, to beat them 3-1. So and during that game, we took the lead 3-0, and that 2nd and 3rd period, we had to yell on the bench those line change. We even had to touch the players, because I don't think that there was a fan that sat in their seat for the second and third period. Everyone was standing up, like, gosh, you know, to win a championship on the road is pretty special, but to win it at home, I don't think that, you know, like, anyone can recreate this. It's just unbelievable. Like, gosh, to see all our families, to see Ray Borg get the Stanley Cup from Joe Sakic. Like, Joe Sakic had many great goals, had many great assists, but that pass of the Stanley Cup to Ray Borg, that was magical.
I mean, the teams you guys had that you had in your time there, coaching Patrick Waugh, you talked about him, and coaching Raymond Bourque. I'll never forget Gary Thorne's call was, all he said was Raymond Bourque when Joe gave him the cup, and just magical, even being a Red Wings fan. So I want to ask you about that. How hot was that rivalry? I mean, you weren't there when everything happened, obviously, when Lemieux hit Draper, and that's what triggered it. But how hot was that rivalry to coach in, Bob?
I came in as the peacemaker. Like, I got to be friends with Scotty, but at the same time, you know, I have to admit it was kind of a dream come true for me, because obviously growing as a Montreal Canadian fan, and seeing Scotty Bowman collect Stanley Cups in Montreal, like Scotty Bowman started to coach, I was not even born. And even though we were part of probably one of the biggest rivalries in pro sport, suddenly I was coaching against one of my idols. And you know, like, talk about the rivalry between the two cities. I have two stories. Like, one afternoon of a game, like, I decided it was beautiful, and our hotel was in Greektown, so it was maybe, I don't know, like 1 or 2 mile walk, and I started to walk with one of my assistants, and a police cruiser came by and stopped right beside us, and the boat officers, and it was maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon, bright sunny day, and he said, you know, you're Hartley, and that's one of your assistants. I said, yeah. He said, well, he said, better hop on. He said, because he said, I don't know if you'll make it to your hotel. He said, you understand the rivalry between the two teams? I said, I fully understand. Well, he said, don't walk. He said, get on, I'll drive you to our hotel. And another time with John Kelly, our play-by-play, our TV play-by-play. I love racquetball, and we went to a private club close to our hotel, a private gym. And we get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I get in the gym, and there's only like 2 or 3 members there, and right away I can see like those eyes like staring at me. I say good morning, and I'm very polite, and suddenly we got in the court, and I told John, I said, oof, I said, that was not very friendly good morning. And not 5 minutes in the game, the manager came to us and said, boys, you have to leave. Like, we have so many complaints from our members. Like, we're sorry, but you'll have to leave. So that was the end of our the end of our racquetball game. But it's just to show it was an unbelievable rivalry. It got down a little bit, which in a certain way was good, because it might have went overboard a little bit. But, you know, like in those days, that was hockey.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Yeah, I mean, I remember Claude Lemieux coming in here and reports that, you know, there were bomb threats at the hotel in Greektown, you know, right where you guys stayed at the Athenaeum, I believe, is where you guys stayed, right?
Oh, yes. Lots of noise at night. Police, sirens, everything.
Yeah, I mean, that was... Yeah, I mean, I always remember in that vein, I know I don't want to go too deep, but I always remember Chris Chelios saying he would never play in Detroit, and obviously we know how that worked out, but I think the one guy that I don't think the Red Wings ever would have considered signing was certainly Claude Lemieux, just because of what went down. That is awesome stuff, Bob. I want to go back a little bit of a step, because you mentioned Scotty, and I figured he was your mentor. Was he your idol? Was he your idol, bar none, as a kid? And those Canadian teams when you were a kid, they had to have been, right?
Oh, for sure. You know, like, they were so dominant, and Ken Dryden in net, and Serge Savard, Jacques Lemaire, Guy Lafleur. Like, gosh, like, you're growing up as a kid, you're 10, 12, 13 years old. You're old enough to understand that your team is winning, but as a kid, you're going to play street hockey or pond hockey or whatever you want to play in your basement. And suddenly you're Guy Lafleur, you're Ken Dryden, because those players win. They, like it seems so easy, and as a kid, you can't realize that, if you get there, how tough it is to win. Like they made it they made it look so easy.
They really did. And, at the end of the day, yourself, I've had a chance to talk and get to know many coaches in many different sports, and my heart's in hockey, as I know yours is. At the end of the day, it's really teaching. And there's a lot of things that go into being a successful coach, which is where I'm going to go with you. Obviously, winning helps, and you've done that everywhere you've been. But what are a couple of things, Bob, that you really feel are important to you as a coach that you have to have, whether it's the player relationships or just the management part? How do you put that into words? What are the most important things to you? Let's say, for example, when you started with Avangard, when you the team's assembled, what's important? What do you have to have out of you and your staff?
Well, the first thing, I think, between the staff and the players, you need to communicate your plan. Even before you get on the ice, you need to kind of give them a sense of what's the process, what are the expectations? Because if there's no process, if there's no expectations, how can you get results? And then you have to follow the steps. I feel that like in any businesses or any sports, you have a meeting and you make a plan, and suddenly the process starts. But at the end of the process, here's the result. Whether if you're in sports, here's a championship. If you're in business, well, it's a record year, record sales. But once it gets going, people gets emotional and it gets tense, and suddenly the plan or the process goes out the window. And this is where you need to have good people around you and say, okay, hey, maybe we don't get the start, or maybe we go through a part of games where you have injuries, or you just lose your game. I realized one thing in my career, especially at the pro level. There are long seasons. In the NHL, you play 82 games. As a fan, as an owner, as a GM, as a reporter, you want players to be at 100% for 82 games. But when you're part of them, you understand that as much as you expected out of them, it's basically impossible. If you get 85% out of the players on a daily basis, and then get to the playoffs and say, okay, boys, we have to find another gear, I think that you have a chance to succeed. But during that process, during that regular season, I always pride myself in working the steps. There's, for minor hockey coaches that are watching us, don't get in systems if your team don't have any conditioning, if your team don't have any details, if they don't have any technical assets. Because whatever system that you may have, if you have no details to get in your system, it will not work, because there's going to be too many holes, too many flaws. So to have a plan, to respect your plan, obviously always listen. As a coach, you always have to listen. There's always good people that will be able to help you. And looking at my background, I came in from 8 years working in a factory, and lots of people helped me. I asked for lots of help, lots of hints. I went to many coaching seminars, bought books, bought videos, and then you build your own identity.
That's great, Bob. I love that insight. Thanks for sharing that. So we'll pick back up kind of where we were a little bit. Colorado, you're there another year, I believe it was. Things don't work out. You go to Atlanta. Then you end up going to the Swiss League. You go back to the league. You win Jack Adams Coach of the Year in Calgary. But in that Atlanta stop, I believe, from getting to know you and talking about it, had pretty much everything to do with you sitting where you're at today, was a player that you coached, and that's Ilya Kovalchuk, correct?
Yes, that was so special. Don Waddell, I talked with Don Waddell about the coaching job in Atlanta, and I look at their lineup, Ilya Kovalchuk, Danny Heatley, Kari Lehtinen. I said, wow, this team is, drafting pretty well. And, I wanted, going from Colorado, a team that was full of veterans, and then having the opportunity to basically keep building a team. I believe the Thrashers were in their fifth year of their existence. So it was still a very fairly young team, and that was a challenge that was very interesting to me. So I took it on, and I had fun. Like, we managed to work so hard and get to one playoff round, but we got in against the Rangers, and prior to maybe 2-3 weeks before the playoffs, I was telling my assistants, if there's one team that I don't want to play, is the New York Rangers. I felt that team was really peaking at the right time, and they beat us 4 straight. But I was like, it was my first time in a kind of non-traditional hockey market, and I loved it. Like, we worked so hard to get some fans in the building at Phillips Arena, whether it was the ownership, management with Don Waddell, the coaches, the players. We were everywhere, whether it was summer or hockey. Everyone was promoting the team. Everyone was promoting the NHL, and I learned a lot. It was a great learning experience for me in Atlanta.
Yeah, and you formed that relationship, obviously, with Ilya Kovalchuk. And share the story about how it all started. The reason you're really sitting in Moscow now coaching this team, it all started with a conversation with Kovy, right?
Yeah, like, I was I believe in Denmark with coaching Team Latvia in the World Championship. And we just beat Draisaitl and the Germans in a big game that allowed us to basically move up to the quarterfinals of the World Championships. And it was fairly late because it was the 8 o'clock game in Denmark. And I was getting ready to go back to the hotel, and suddenly my phone rings, and I look, and it says Kovy. And I said, gosh, I don't know where Kovy is, but it could be pretty late for him. And I thought that he was calling me to congratulate me on our big win. And he said, Bob, he said, I just talked with the president of Avangard, and you need to go there, because Kovy knew that I had maybe like 4 or 5 offers from KHL teams before, but like, looking at like media reports from North America over what was going on in Russia, like, sometimes you don't always get like the real picture. Yes, like in any league, there's things that you can do better or things that you do great. And like, as like with my family and everything, like, getting to the reports of like many situations, I just felt that I had basically no interest to go in the KHL. I told Kovy, I said, Kovy, because I always kept contact with Kovy. And I said, Kovy, I said, I said, I don't want to go. He said, no. He said, this is the right time. This is the right spot. You're going to be well treated. Everything's going to be good. Bob, it's going to be very close to NHL standards. So I said, okay. I said, I don't guarantee you anything. I said, I will talk with them. And one assistant coach came to meet me a few days later in Denmark. Then a few days later, Max Sushinsky, who was the general manager, and Alexander Krylov, the president, came to meet me again in Denmark. And I said, okay, I said, you made your presentation. I said, give me a week. I'll go back to North America. I'll think about it. I'll talk with my family, and I'll give you the answer. And we kept talking during that week, and finally I said yes. I said, I'll try it. And gosh, like, I should have came here before.
Wow. Interesting to hear you say that now. 2 finals appearances, won the Cup last year, of course, in the 2021 season. In my book, you may not like this, maybe you will, but I think you guys are clearly a favorite to do it again this year. We'll see down the road.